let's do Restless, which is the new movie by Gus Van Sant, whose most recent and celebrated work was Milk, which won a couple of Oscars, Sean Penn. Probably most famous and cherished work is Good Will Hunting, which was like, Dead Poets Society, slightly more intelligent and mainstream. Best work is Elephant, which Lynn Ramsey was talking about then in relation to We Need to Talk About Kevin, saying that she didn't want to make that movie because that movie had already been made by Gus Van Sant, and that's a terrific film, named of course after the Alan Clark drama Elephant, which was originally about sectarian violence in Northern Ireland and was produced, or at least executive produced, by Danny Boyle, because I did a commentary for it with him. I think Gus Van Sant's worst work, by a million miles, is that thing Last Days, which was the sort of imagined recreation of The Last Days of Kurt Cobain, which was a movie in which at one point we do actually watch somebody make porridge for about 3 minutes, and you just think, I'm sorry, I don't care in so many ways. This new movie, Restless, is unfortunately closer to Last Days than Elephant. It's a film that wants to be Harold and Maude, but ends up being Benny and June, basically. And although actually not up to the Benny and June standards.
Terry and June?
Terry and June. It ends up being Terry and June. So two annoying kids. One, Henry Hopper, from Dennis, which probably explains the casting. He's a guy he's got a trauma in his past and he gets his kicks by gate-crashing funerals. The other is Mia Wasikowska, who is terminally ill, although she has that movie terminal illness, which, you look perfectly fine until the moment that you're finally going to croak. So it's
Last seen in Jane Eyre.
Last seen in Jane Eyre, absolutely. And so he sees dead people, namely a kooky kamikaze pilot who is a ghost who accompanies him. She can't see the kooky kamikaze pilot but likes him because he's got an infatuation with funerals, and obviously we're all headed towards the morgue. Here is a scene in which, in a crazy kind of kooky kind of way, he, with his kooky crazy death fixation, is talking to the dead ghost of the kamikaze pilot, who she can't see or hear, but he's interpreting the conversation between them in a kind of Gen X slacker sort of kooky crazy. Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
Wonder where ghost horses go.
What is it with girls and horses?
I think it's the mane.
Does she want to know about my military service?
I don't think so.
Don't think what?
He wants to know if you want to know about his military service.
Of course.
Oh, good. It was 1941. I was at the top of my graduating class.
It's boring.
You used to like that story.
I've heard it a million times. Top of your class, chosen over hundreds of other pilots.
Does he miss flying?
I do.
He says he does.
Wasn't he scared?
You aren't allowed to be afraid.
He said a little.
No, I didn't.
It was implied.
Do you ever get to meet famous ghosts, like Ben Franklin or Napoleon or anything?
We haven't met any other ghosts yet.
Maybe you should take out a personal.
La 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 la. It's an indie sense. The soundtrack goes like that. An indie sensibility film. Although it's one of the main. But the soundtrack goes like that the whole way through, and then it's sort of it's interspersed with those kind of emo songs. In which people's voices sing like this in the messy rainwork, and it is absolutely excruciating. Did you ever see Benny and June? Benny and June was, which I think, Johnny Depp's worst performance outside of Pirates of the Caribbean. This makes Benny and June look like the movie Hal Ashby would have dreamed of making. It is absolutely rotten to the core. Other sort of crazy, kooky scenes is the scene when they go to a Halloween party and they meet another guy dressed as a kamikaze pilot. That's just crazy because he's already got a friend who's a ghost. You know what he likes to do with the ghost friend who's a kamikaze pilot? They play battleships. You get it? See, he's a kamikaze. You see, they play battleships. Smart. Yeah, but it's crazy and kooky because it's like they don't care, but they do. And you're watching it thinking this is fatuous, inane, infantile drivel doing that. I tell you what it's like, and I say this as somebody who likes him, it is like the worst Morrissey song imaginable. It's like when there's, oh, suicide and pain, oh, woe and death, yeah, but I like your hair, your hair is sweet as death. Honestly, and it is just, and it's this flatulent, awful rubbish. And it whilst watching it, I thought, it's funny because I remember watching Last Days in Cannes, and watching last night when this character making porridge, drifting inexorably towards the inevitable chaos, but it's okay in a kooky kind of way. And I remember literally having to bite my knuckles to stay awake because I this is what watching.
Just suck a bit of lemon. Or something.
No, that wouldn't have done the trick. Watching Restless, you could actually die in the cinema and not notice because you wouldn't feel any different. It is just awful, and it's got that incredibly annoying thing about hey, we're talking about death, but with pauses, and that what they set out to do was we love Harold and because it's emo, it's dark, but beauty and dark. There's one scene as well in which she enacts her coming death, okay, but they've got a tape recorder on playing the music, and they have to have a conversation. She's got to think about seabirds because that's kooky as well. She's fascinated by seabirds. See, hey. Seabirds.
Why is that kooky?
Well, exactly. Why is any of this in any way vaguely interesting? They're the kind of people who populate who wear. It's ditzy. It's like Annie Hall meets the Grim Reaper without the jokes. It is Benny and June go to hell, or Terry and June go to hell.
That would have been.
And it is one of the films that reminds you that in his worst moments, Gus Van Sant did a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, or he did that thing in Last Days in which the camera is looking at a house and the camera wanders over to the trees and then wanders back a little bit and no one notices. Why? Because they're all asleep. It is the kind of film that will be loved and taken to the bosom of, people in a certain emo state of mind who think that somehow there is something clever and kooky and charming about having irritating, overprivileged nitwits saying, I'm having a ghostly conversation with a kamikaze pilot while that noodly awful ding 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 music goes on in the background. It was grotesque. And I tell you, as I said, I like Morrissey, but this was like a 90-minute Morrissey song with all the worst things about his awful self-indulgent, self-loathing, self-love. We will lie in the grave together.
Is that the only time you're going to be singing?